Hey everybody, how are you today? This is Sean Parker again. First of all, I wanted to thank everybody that was on the last feed. I missed yesterday, but 2 days ago had a topic there where we talked about differentiating the difference between revenue and profit, right? So we talked about the difference, two very different things, and obviously revenue is a much bigger number than profit. Want to talk about how to build margin. Today, though, we're going to talk about a little bit of a different topic. We're going to talk about leadership. We're going to talk about different types of leadership. Specifically, I want to talk about the serving leader, and we'll talk about some truths and myths about leadership today. Before we do that, though, I wanted to thank the people that have been joining and watching. Again, what I wanted to try to do is get on here every day, every other day, and hopefully impart some wisdom and something that you guys can derive some value from in your personal or professional lives. Before we do that, though, as people are joining, do me a favor, down in the comment section down below, if you type in what hometown that you're calling, or you're not calling in, but wherever you're viewing from today. So I'm personally in Bixby, Oklahoma right now. I grew up in Houston, Texas, so I know a bunch of my homies down in Houston will be joining, hopefully. But hey, Raul Murillo's talking about my ugly hat. I think he's a shorthorn Boomer Sooner, baby. Raul, good to see you. And I'm assuming Raul down in the comments section that you're going to put that you're dialing in from Houston, Texas. But anyway, I'm in Bixby, Oklahoma right now, so again, I'm kind of curious to see where everybody else in my extended network is dialing into today. Also, I am kind of curious, so just to kind of give me a little bit of a feel for who's coming and watching repeatedly for these things. If you would, down in that comment section, also type in the number 1 and let me know if you've been on or viewed one of the podcasts that I've put on here prior. That would mean a lot to me. Thanks. Okay. As people join, I'm going to go ahead and jump in here. Obviously, this thing can be replayed. So do me a favor, if you're so inclined, share this. Hit the share button down on your screen. That should be, I think, over on this side of your screen. And that way, if there's people that you think will derive some value from this post or other posts, then it'll put it out there and they'll be able to see that. So again, hit that share button for me. And if there's, during the message, if you guys like what the content is, hit the like button for me as well, and that again will let me know, that hey, this topic was impactful, or that you're finding value from these, so that we'll know for future posts what we need to be doing. So today, again, I want to talk about leadership, right? And I will say, I'm going to kind of put a shout out here. The book that I like is called The Serving Leader, right? And it's by Ken Jennings and John Stallworth. A really good read, and the thing about that book is that it doesn't just drop a bunch of theory on you. It kind of tells it more in a story form, right? So it'll take you through a narrative, and then it makes the points about leadership throughout that. So with that serving leader model, I'm going to talk about that here in a second. But first thing I want to do is just kind of leadership inherently. I think if you ask people a leader, some people are pretty introspective, pretty self-aware, and they'll be like, I'm an outstanding leader. And maybe they are, right? And other people, they're pretty self-aware. They're like, I'm not so much of a leader. I kind of like to hang in the background and participate. And I'm here to tell you that's one of the myths, right? Because just because you're not a type A personality, or just because that you're not somebody that carries a title or a role that we view stereotypically as leadership, does not mean that you're not in fact a leader. So I want to talk about that a little bit. The first thing, right? There's natural leaders and there's developed leaders. And some people are naturally born leaders. They have those attributes, or they possess those behaviors that are indicative of what we would call leaders, right? There's other people that maybe aren't as naturally inclined, that have worked very hard to try to develop those skills, right? And so then there's people that are natural leaders that also work very hard to develop those leadership skills. And I think those people tend to be those 1%ers that people, I think, look at and go, wow, that person is a fantastic leader. But again, you've got to recognize what good leadership is before you can recognize it in others, right? Just because somebody's loud, just because somebody's a type A personality, or just because somebody comes in and takes charge doesn't mean that they're an effective leader. And I'm going to also give, a lot of people are going to kind of squirm when I say this, so please understand, I'm not advocating for this individual, but what I'm saying is that leadership can be good or it can be used for evil. That leadership is a behavior and it's an activity, it's not a quality, so to speak, right? So, so who are some of the greatest leaders? Down in the comments section, I'd like for you guys to start typing in who you think that your favorite leader is, or that you think who either in your lifetime or even before was one of the greatest leaders in history. I'm curious to see what your responses there are, because this is where I'm going to drop a little bit of a bombshell on you and hopefully get you thinking, right? While you guys are typing that in, though, I want to talk a little bit about these natural leaders versus developed leaders, okay? And one of my favorite shows, I'm going to show you this picture. Hopefully some of you guys recognize this. But this is a scene, and if you'll recall, it's from the movie The Polar Express, where Tom Hanks was a conductor. And this was one of the little girls that was on the Polar Express. And at the end of the scene, when he's dropping everybody back off, you remember he had the little punch, the hole punch, and he gives them their tickets, and or he takes their tickets rather, and he punches a word into it, right? And one was believe for the main character, but for this little girl, if you recall, it was lead. And then he says leader, leadership. Well, this little girl wasn't in a formal leadership role, right? But if you think about the role she played in that movie, she was kind of that cohesive bond with those kids. And if you remember, the plot of the story was, did they believe in Christmas and Santa Claus and all that good stuff? And there was one kid on there that was struggling with whether he believed or not. There were other kids on there that blindly believed, right? And she kind of sat down and talked to the kid that was on the fence. And if you remember, she acted basically as a leader and explained to him why she thought he should believe, all right? So I don't want to get too much into the Polar Express, but the point is, she wasn't a CEO, she wasn't a general, she wasn't an admiral, but she took on the role as a leader. So that brings up formal versus informal leadership, right? So I talked about some people are thrust into formal leadership roles, some people are informal leaders. I would say that it's interesting because sometimes we put people that are the worst leaders into leadership roles, whereas other people that are informally leading are doing a lot of the heavy lifting. And so sometimes that poor leader that's sitting in the formal leadership role is reaping the benefit of some of the true leaders that may be a little further down in their organization or in their network that are truly leading. And this person is kind of reaping the benefits of all that. Just again, I guess the point I'm trying to make here is that, to be a leader, you don't need to be a natural born leader. You can develop it. You don't need to be a formal leader. You can do it every day. Hey, I want to thank, Raul, thank you. Raul Murillo's thrown out some of the greatest leaders of all time. So Abraham Lincoln is one that he threw out. Absolutely. Abraham Lincoln, I don't think anybody would question, was a fantastic leader. Raul, it looks like you paid attention in school. Theodore Roosevelt's another one that Raul put out there. And yes, Theodore Roosevelt was a very vibrant, vivacious type A personality, became president of the United States, excellent leader, right? And we think that these people are doing very positive things. Raul, you're showing off a little bit Alexander the Great. He thinks Alexander the Great's a good leader. Karen, thank you. Karen said George Washington. Raul's throwing out MLK, all right? So why do we think these folks are great leaders? Well, one, because they led either huge empires or, U.S. isn't an empire, but it's a country that we like to think that we've had some success and had some heroic feats, and our presidents often led during conflict, right? So George Washington during the Revolutionary War, Abraham Lincoln during the Civil War. Caesar ran the Roman Empire. That was thrown out there, right? So are these people all great leaders? Yes. Very grand leaders, very grand examples. But each day, right, you can lead in very small, less significant ways. But when we talk about what makes a good leader, right, what about Hitler? And I told you I was going to make you a little bit uncomfortable there. Hey, put a 2 in there if you think that Hitler, right down here in the comments section, type 2 in if you think Hitler was a great leader. I'm curious to see, and we'll come back based on the responses that I see coming through. So now that we've talked a little bit about, Karen, I'm going to pause here. Thank you. She said, don't forget about Jesus. I think, of course, Jesus, fantastic leader, right? And you know what? That's a great segue into the servant leadership that I want to talk about. So good segue, Karen. Thank you. So what is servant leadership? Well, I'm going to say just kind of in a nutshell, servant leadership is where you lead by following, maybe. You lead by making others' priorities your own. They derive value in what you are providing, or you all have a common goal or a common objective that you're trying to reach, and you put it out there, right? You put yourself out there to help those people be successful, or maybe even to create the illusion that you're helping those people be successful, because you know that collectively as a team you want to get from point A to point B. So you're stepping back, you're not being the type A necessarily, you're not being the one that goes into a group and tries to take over and have everything be your idea or take credit, right? It's a very humble style of taking a team, right, and kind of putting them on your shoulders and taking your skills and abilities and knowledge and things that you bring to the table and really using that for the team and to try to help the team perform better. So when we talk about Stallworth and Jennings in their book, The Serving Leader, this is a model that they have. I'm going to hold this up. Hopefully you can read that, right? So they're working off of a pyramid, and they say upend the pyramid. And so instead of a typical, organization or situation where it's all about the leader and then everything else flows down, what they're saying is turn this sucker upside down. So where you want the leader's going to help you run to great purpose, you're going to upend the pyramid as we talk about, raise the bar, blaze the trail, and then build on strengths. So this is the model that I'm going to discuss with you a little bit today. So the first thing is, at the base of this pyramid that's been upended, rather than it being the leader at the top where the bigger bar is about the leader and then everything else kind of funnels down to the little guy, we flipped it to where the leader's working down here and putting everything kind of on their shoulders, right? I think about Atlas putting the world on his shoulders. That's what great leaders do. So run to great purpose. What does that mean? Well, that means that leaders, they can instill or reinforce or at least bring out, you know what, Raul, you're right. This thing is backwards. I'll know better to type it better next time, but I'm going to speak to it. Sorry about that. I thought Facebook had fixed this thing to where whenever you held it up, it put everything properly. So I went to UO. Just kidding. But back to the pyramid, right? The first thing is run to great purpose. The leaders can create vision, right? Or they can create a lifestyle that people aspire to, right? You think about people that you look at and that you admire and you go, hey, that's somebody that I might follow. Maybe they're really fit and you're like, wow, that person's got their stuff together. They have a lot of self-discipline. They get up early. They stay fit. Hey, that person makes great grades in school. Wow, what discipline. I'd sure aspire to live my life more like them. Or maybe there's somebody that said, hey, everybody, wouldn't it be great if we could achieve X, maybe it's building a habitat for humanity. Yeah, that's a fantastic idea. Everybody kind of jumps behind. That's that run to great purpose. And leaders, I think good leaders, they have the ability to do that, to put that vision out there and gather that followership. Again, whether or not they're in a formal role, they're kind of putting that goodness out there. The second part is up into the pyramid, and we talked a little bit about that, right? And that is that once you've got this purpose, this great purpose they've put out there, it's not about, hey, we got to go build Habitat for Humanity so that Sean Parker can say on my resume that I got a bunch of people and we built Habitat for Humanity and what a giver I am and me. No, it's not that, right? It's, hey, if we're going to build this Habitat for Humanity, what is this going to do to help the people on my team or the people around me or the community or the family within it? All that other good stuff, that stuff that people glean, if you're going into the deal with what can I get out of it for me, that's not very authentic, it's not very genuine, and I think that people see right through that. But if you go into it and your heart is truly about, we're going to achieve something great or good, and in the process, I'm going to help lift everybody else up, that's what I'm talking about. That's upending the pyramid, right? And then raising the bar. People don't like losers. People don't like people that strive for mediocrity or underachievement, right? So it's that you're constantly challenging not only yourself, but you're constantly challenging people around you so that they're living up to their potential and then living and hopefully achieving above their potential, right? So it's, hey, today I want to wake up and I'm just going to try not to get hit by a bus today. I don't know that God blessed us with, that's it, right? I don't know if that's all that God wanted us to do when we hopped out of bed each day was try not to die in the street, right? So it's, hey, what gifts do I have? What can I provide? What can I impart? And do I wake up each day with kind of an idea in my mind how I'm going to contribute, right? So whether that's a personal aspiration that you have, whether it's organizational, whether you're on a team, whether it's how you plan on making a living, set goals for yourself, right? You do that first, you set your goals, then you measure your results. And now you compare and you go, hey, I either hit my goals, I exceeded my goals, I didn't meet my goals, whatever that is, measure those results. So set goals, measure results, look at your outcomes, and then you kind of recalibrate and you go, all right, well, this were my results. This is what I could probably do better if I just hit my goals. If I want to start exceeding my goals, what do I need to do better and differently, right? So you want to now maybe start to raise the bar, right? Raise the bar. Or if you're not hitting those goals, what did I maybe do that I could have done differently or better to meet my goals? All right, but leaders do that, and it doesn't mean that they have to smack a big scorecard up on the wall to make that happen. They might just kind of do it casually in conversation and go, well, hey, Dad, I was in my soccer game today and we won, hooray. And the dad's looking there maybe and being like, yeah, without saying it, super, you did, but you were out of position half the game and you didn't pass to your teammates, you hogged the ball a little bit. So rather than crushing that kid's spirit, the dad might go, yeah, you did win, fantastic. So what do you think that you did well? And the kid might say, well, I think I ran really fast and then I high-fived all my teammates and I had a lot of fun, right? Yeah, okay, great. Well, what do you think maybe that you'd like to do better next time? The kid kind of knows, right? Maybe the kid doesn't know, but you don't have to crush the kid and go, you suck, you were out of position, you didn't pass the ball, you teammates, you ball hog. But the kid might go, now that I think about it, maybe I could have passed a little bit better. And so I think that that's what leaders do is that they know that each of us probably more than likely have the answer inside of us. They're good at facilitating, pulling that out of people and helping them discover their own solutions or their own ability to improve, right? So that's kind of how they raise the bar, okay? Finally, blazing the trail. Again, this is about seeking to win. If you're not in a competitive environment, maybe it's just being your best. But blazing the trail, people want to follow people that are inspirational. They're putting themselves out there. They're trying to make good things happen. People typically don't want to follow people that are at home sitting on the couch eating potato chips and watching Judge Wapner reruns from 30 years ago. And I know there's been like 15 judges since Judge Wapner. Thankfully, I can't quote who they all are because I'm not on the couch watching Judge Wapner. I'm watching Maury Povich. Just kidding. And lastly, guys, at the top of the pyramid is build on strengths. So what in the world does that mean? Why would we build on strengths? Well, guys, I'll tell you a little secret. Leaders build on strengths. They don't, and I think the misconception, again, this goes back to some of the myths, is they don't really sit around focusing on their weaknesses. Okay? It doesn't mean they don't focus on them at all. It doesn't mean they don't try to improve them. But really good leaders and really top performers, this is the little nugget, right? This is the takeaway. They build on the strengths, or not even themselves, but they leverage the strengths of their team or their community or whatever it is around them. And that is what helps propel them to truly great things. So let me give you an example of building on strengths. And I don't know remember the name of the person, right? But there's a Korean ping pong player, world-class Korean ping pong player, and this person would just crush everybody. And the person was interviewed, and they're like, what in the world makes you so successful? And the Korean ping pong player talked about how he prepared for his game, and he's like, I work on my serve like 90% of the time. And then I work on the other stuff about 10% of the time. And they're like, why? I mean, your serve is outstanding. And he's like, yes, it is. And they're like, well, then why are you working on that 90% of the time? Why wouldn't you work on maybe your backhand or your forehand volley? Why are you working on the thing that you're best at? And he said, well, in ping pong, if you can't return my serve, I win. Right? So why wouldn't I work on that strength if people aren't returning my serve? If it gets to the point where people are returning my serve, then I'll work on the next thing. But right now, it's unstoppable, and that's what I work on. So leveraging strengths, building on strengths, right? That's what it's about. So type of 3 down in the comments section if that made sense for you. I'd appreciate hearing that. So, guys, that's really what I wanted to put out there today, right? And as you think about in your job, in your family, in your community, I want you to think about, again, how you view yourself as a leader, right? And again, you don't need to be a president of your homeowners association. You don't need to be a CEO of your company. You don't need to be the head coach. But type a 4 in there for me if you think that today you view yourself a little bit more as a leader based on the definition that I shared with you versus what maybe society says a leader is. So if you're that person that you think, even kind of sitting back, that you're somebody that can contribute and lift people up and put that pyramid on your shoulders to make the group collectively better, type a 4 down in that comment section for me. I appreciate it. So that's really what I wanted to share with you again today. I'm not really plugging this, right, in terms of I've got nothing to gain, but I'm just telling you it's a book that I've derived a great deal of value from, and it's called The Serving Leader. And I think that it hammers home in a very readable way what I'm talking about here today. And I hope that you guys can take some of these nuggets back with you and begin to apply them. Or maybe you're somebody that's trying to develop leaders, right? That maybe you can take some of these concepts and help develop those folks. And as you're doing that, right, remember there's natural leaders, there's developed leaders, and then there's natural leaders that are constantly working on developing their leadership. Don't let somebody just say, hey, I'm not a leader, or don't you put them in a bucket and assume they're not a leader because they're not that type A dynamic person that comes in and takes over the group. Sometimes those people are the worst leaders, right? And again, kind of the example of leadership can be used for good and leadership can be used for evil. Hitler was a great leader, folks. That's the answer to that, right? Not a popular guy, the axis of evil, as I think we would all agree, right? He created genocide amongst millions and millions of people. However, that's a guy that was not big in stature, not probably the smartest guy, right? But he somehow managed to work his way from a child of a broken home to managing and leading one of the, and granted, while it was short-lived, one of the strongest organizations, if you will, in Germany during that time. Now, thankfully, they were crushed and defeated, right, because it was evil. But again, just understand that this leadership does have some responsibility that goes with it, a great deal of foresight and intentionality in how you apply it each day. Appreciate everybody being on the call today. If you did, in fact, derive some value out of this, please hit the like button down below. And as I said before, I've got my limited network here that's going to see this. So if you've got people beyond my network that you think might derive some value out of this, I would be most humbled if you would share this. So down at the bottom, if you could hit the share button for me, I would very much appreciate that. Then I can start seeing feedback from beyond as well, from a bigger group of people that's going to start to help give me ideas for content that we can share. So again, in the words of the late Thomas Lee Parker, when you get old and you think you're sweet, take off your shoes and smell your feet. Except for you, Heather, your feet are delicious. Everybody have a good day.